With us today is Tiffany Finck-Haynes. She is the Pesticides and Pollinators Program Manager for Friends of the Earth. Friends of Earth, FOE.org is their website. Tiffany, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on the program and talking with us. Tell me about this pesticide that causes brain damage and developmental injury to children that the Trump administration seems to think is just fine to be in our ecosystem and in our food.
Sure. So chlorpyrifos is a toxic, brain-damaging pesticide. It was originally derived from nerve gas and developed during World War II in Nazi Germany. It is extremely toxic. It's linked to reduced IQ, a number of different human health impacts, Parkinson's disease, cancer, autism, a number of different learning disabilities. And EPA scientists concluded in 2000 that it should be restricted for most residential uses. So EPA moved forward with banning most residential uses in 2000. After almost 2 decades of additional studies, EPA scientists concluded that all uses should be banned. Under the Obama administration in 2015, EPA proposed banning all uses, and then one of the first steps that the Trump administration took in 2017 was that they reversed the ban. So what EPA just came out with saying late last week was that they're refusing to move forward with banning this pesticide. The Ninth Circuit Court ordered last August that they should ban all uses of chlorpyrifos, and the issue's been tied up in litigation. So chlorpyrifos is an extremely toxic pesticide for both human health as well as environmental health. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has concluded that it's linked to the harm of over 1,200 threatened and endangered species. So it's really critical that we get this toxic pesticide out of our environment so that more people aren't exposed to it. But as you said, the Trump administration is refusing to do that and listen to its own scientists.
And presumably getting it out of our food supply. I mean, is this a danger? Obviously, there's a danger to wildlife. Is there also a danger, and I'm assuming that there's a severe danger to agricultural workers who tend to be viewed as disposable people in American society. Is there also a danger to individual consumers?
Absolutely. So what EPA scientists concluded was that any level of chlorpyrifos is too toxic. So they took years to study this issue, looked at farm worker exposure with a number of different layers of protective gear, and they found any level of protection, whether it was additional masks, additional clothing, was just too toxic. And chlorpyrifos is widely used in agriculture on a number of different crops that all of us eat regularly. So things like apples, grapes, corn. And so it can show up as residues in the common foods that we all eat. We can also be exposed to it through air, the water that we drink. And for farm workers who are producing our food, they're exposed to these chemicals at sometimes extremely high levels, which can instantly result in human health impacts such as poisoning. And again, they're exposed at even higher levels to the horrible impacts that can result, such as brain damage, cancer, Parkinson's disease. So we know that there's cumulative exposure for all of us by being exposed to not only chlorpyrifos, but other pesticides that are showing up in our food, such as glyphosate, neonicotinoids, other toxic pesticides. So the impacts for all of us can accumulate over time, but especially for farm workers and their children who are exposed to these chemicals on a routine basis when they're producing our food, the impacts are really, really alarming and problematic.
Given the depth of this science, 20 years of studies by the Environmental Protection Agency, other countries coming to the same conclusion, broad scientific consensus, what possible reason could the Trump administration have for wanting to not ban this chemical? And, who are the actors who are pushing them to do that?
So the only thing that we can all conclude is that the Trump administration as it's demonstrated on a number of different issues, and particularly on this issue, is that it's prioritizing the interests of the pesticide manufacturers. So Dow Chemical is the leading manufacturer of chlorpyrifos. There was clear collusion with the Trump administration on this issue. Dow Chemical donated over $1 million to Trump's inaugural committee right after the Trump administration took office. Dow Chemical met with the Trump administration about this issue. Days after meeting with Scott Pruitt, the former head of EPA, Scott Pruitt and the Trump administration announced that they weren't going to be moving forward on the ban and banning all uses of chlorpyrifos. So the only thing we can conclude is that the Trump administration values Dow Chemical's profits more than it values protecting human health and the environment and listening to its own EPA scientists.
Right, or if not Dow Chemical's profits, they certainly value Dow Chemical's campaign contributions or, money for the inaugural balls. That's outrageous. Tiffany, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, one quick question, one quick last question. What can people do who are outraged by this?
So the best thing that people can do is contact their state legislators, state and federal legislators. There's several bills moving at the federal level in both the Senate and the House. Representative Velazquez and Senator Udall have introduced legislation to ban this pesticide. So contact your member of Congress, urge them to co-sponsor, support, and work with Congress to pass this bill. In absence of federal action, it's also critical that state legislators step up and ban this pesticide. Hawaii was the first state to pass and enact legislation to ban chlorpyrifos. New York, in April, just passed legislation to ban chlorpyrifos. It's sitting on Governor Cuomo's desk to sign it, so we're urging all New Yorkers to contact Governor Cuomo and urge him to sign this bill into law. And for all other states, it's critical that they take immediate action to ban this pesticide. So contact your legislators and urge them to take immediate action on this issue.
Tiffany Finck-Haynes with Friends of the Earth, FOE.org. Thanks so much for being with us today.